And Derek Weisberg is a great singer. Okay, welcome. There's drinks, help yourself. And then, let's see, we've always shown Ben's work to some capacity. We've had him like in our special collections room. We sell his work online. A lot of little heads, some small ceramic pieces.
And when Art in a Box started.
But he's been like original Art in a Box artist since day one, actually, pretty much.
Yeah.
So Art in a Box is an art subscription service we do, where we, it's kind of like signing up for a CSA, community supported agriculture, but with art, and we ship all over the world with local Bay Area artists. And Ben's been super consistent participant in that since day one. He's been awesome. He's here every month with a stack of just beautiful work to go out. One of the things we really enjoy working with Ben and wanted to give him a solo show is he's always surprising us, like with really witty, just unconventional approaches to ceramics. It kind of makes you smile. I like work that does that. So every time you come in, you're not like, oh, it's some old Ben Belknap. You're like, oh my god, that's hilarious, or it's funny. It's always a pleasant surprise. So his work is always like it's really fresh, and he's always kind of evolving, I like to think, and adding your own sensibility to it. And besides that, he's amazing with his technique and his mastery of ceramics and glazing in particular. As you guys might know, he's the glaze technician, I guess, at Leslie Ceramics. He does all their blends. It's pretty amazing. So he's the guy to talk to about ceramic glazing if you guys have any questions. I know very little about it, but maybe you can dive into it a little bit with these pieces. So maybe you can start out with a brief intro about who you are and where you went to school.
Okay.
He's also super local. We like to show local artists. So he's like 2 blocks. Just getting more local than that. And he went to CCA as well. He graduated. Ben? Okay. Yeah, and throughout the talk, feel free to shout out any questions you have.
Yeah, so that's ask as many questions.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming. Like you said, I moved out to Barron, went to CCAC, and graduated from there in their ceramics department. That's where I first learned about glazes and ceramics and whatnot. And then after graduating, I got a job at Leslie Ceramics and then started to learn more about glazes there and continued to master the ceramic medium, as it were. And now I also teach glaze technology at the Academy of Art in the city. So I'm very immersed in all the material of the...
When did you graduate?
2003, 10 years ago. But the flat work was actually, I started doing it in order to focus more on glazes in particular. Because I first started out as a sculptor and pretty much made all ceramic sculpture and often didn't glaze it, did minimal glazing. And so by making flat panels like frames, and also I often refer to them as ceramic canvas, that's a painting, then it's just all glazed as the medium. I still like to make sculpture a lot too.
And Ben's pretty well known for his little heads. You guys might have seen the other drawer full of small portraits with wonderful characters.
Yeah, those heads are I consider kind of studies in the sculpting, is practice for like sculpted figures, and then also they work well for practicing glazing as well. Because they're small, you don't have a lot invested in whether you completely ruin one. So by the time I've made a few with the same type of glaze, then get a good idea of how to use the medium to achieve the effects that I want.
The show was really a pleasant surprise. We weren't quite sure what to expect. And we always have communication back and forth, like, hey, what do you plan on doing for the show? And he's like, we had initially thought maybe it'll be heads or small figurative work. Or like, oh, maybe we'll fill the gallery with 500 heads. This was a pleasant surprise. He's like, no, I'm working flat. They're paintings. And I almost feel like he's taking the ceramic medium to, a painting of whatever. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. So.
I mean, people who think of them as tiles. Yeah, I think more as little paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually inspired by, I made a couple pieces for art in a box, which is kind of like when I'm working on art in a box pieces, it's nice because they're kind of just like little one-offs where I don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about the the greater meaning or whatever. Just kind of have an idea and run with it. I made a couple little pieces that I really liked the way it contrast between like a figure that I spent a lot of time making it very realistic. Or they're not necessarily realistic, but defined. Right, and then an abstract area representing, and then for me it represented like different emotions or thoughts, states of mind. But then I had the idea to expand on that, and then I made a lot of experiments in different glazes to start getting different effects.
Yeah, I remember we first met Ben through Sarah, and you had this amazing studio in your apartment, right?
Yeah.
And it was like this large walk-in closet that was converted to the studio. And it was incredible because he had all of these figurative works and little panels inside his little studios.
I didn't really work in there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was still weird. It was cool. It's Would you consider some of these pieces? You consider these a little bit large, right? For some.
Yeah. All the largest ones I made actually broke or warped or didn't turn out. So this show had a lot of due to the experimental nature of the glazes that I was using. I had a lot of things I ended up throwing out. Piles of maybe like another quarter of how many pieces are here that either broke before they were glazed or broke in the firing, warped in the firing, or just the glaze looked really terrible. So,
how long have you been working on your little heads?
The little heads since when I was in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time. And there's a kind of a lack of female heads. Is there anything about that?
No, it's just it's easier for me to make the
guy heads.
The guy heads.
Got it.
I have to really. It takes me like 4 times as long. So.
To make a
and I have to make sit down and decide that's what I'm going to do. Use reference and adjust tiny bits of the features.
Right.
Oh, it looks like a man still.
It's okay to make an ugly guy. Just make an ugly woman.
Right.
It's just acceptable.
Just put some lipstick on.
Yeah. Remember her.
Yeah. Long hair.
Yeah, whatever.
Sure.
Skinny eyebrows.
So how much connection like I love all the drawing and the expression, so you do the drawing of the face first, and how much control does the glaze always come out? I mean, I can't imagine it always being what you imagined, or do you care, or do you intend something? I mean,
a little, it's a little, if you look at the pictures on the screen, so you can kind of see some of the before shots. I took a picture of everyone before I fired it, kind of to learn for the next one too, but also so I could look back and kind of imagine what happened. But I strategically placed things, but some of the pieces the faces got obliterated. I actually didn't realize that the kiln wasn't totally flat, so while it was molten, it ran over the face. But
happy accident.
Happy accident. And I did do a fair amount of testing with some of these glazes I developed for the show. Especially the one that has the big crystals, like one of those pieces. I ran a bunch of glaze tests till I got one that made big crystals every time I fired it, and then gold lustered it to give it color. But so I did kind of run tests, and I had a general idea of how it would work. And I like the idea of having the big crystals as the thoughts, and thought it worked well. And I also like to have a lot of, when I have a glazed piece, I like it to have several different surfaces to add a lot of interest. Like I like having a matte surface, satin surface and a gloss surface, and a lot of contrast in the pieces, you know, just to make it as rich and interesting as possible. So.
Yeah, we like to geek out on process here because we're all about process and printmaking and painting. Let's get into the process a little bit. I think it's pretty fascinating. You could approach these, say, if they were paintings, conventional paintings with acrylic or oil paints, you could sit down and maybe do one in a night or two. And you would be guaranteed that it would end up looking like you wanted it to end up. This process is way more involved, and there's lots of mysterious things that happen in the kiln overnight at 2,000 degrees. You know, I mean, and multiple firings as well that go into these.
Sure.
So we want to talk about what goes into making some of these pieces.
Sure.
Yeah.
A lot of these small ones, I just use the clay body as the skin tone in the background. And so then I'd start every piece by just drawing the face, which works out well too, because if I didn't like it, you just sponge it off with water and then redraw a face on
Was
it.
the panel fired before you came on?
Yes. A lot of these I would use scraps from the larger pieces, and then you have sections. You roll out a big clay slab on a slab roller, which is like a big machine where you push the clay through, and then I would cut out with a square the big pieces, and then I would have strips of clay. So like these ones I've cut and then the little strips, and then everyone beveled on the backs and then hollowed out with little holes. Everyone paints has a little hole to paint.
You have to try it really slowly.
These ones you can dry pretty well, and they don't warp or crack or anything. The large ones I dry between sheets of drywall, and then so that because if you just leave them out on the board, the edges dry and then they'll crack or warp. So if you have it in drywall, it's the plastic stuck in moisture from all sides. You have to dry clay really slowly, especially big flat things. They always want to crack or warp.
So that's just step one.
That's
just
just
making
step
the
one.
panel, drying it, and then fire that.
It's fired once, so then it's called bisque. So it's just like a blank ceramic thing. And then on all these, I drew the faces first, and then after that, it kind of depends on which one. But either I would apply a glaze underneath, like the line detail, and then apply glaze over that reacted to the line detail underneath. And then made shades of glaze on top of that, and then I would sprinkle a little bit of other chemicals on top to kind of add some more interest. But
Wouldn't there be a firing in between those though?
no, it's always one glaze firing, and if it didn't turn out, then I would glaze again and fire it one more time.
Okay.
But if it had luster like this, that's another firing to a lower temperature, where you apply kind of a liquid precious metal onto the glaze, and it fires at a much lower temperature, 1300 degrees. And it fuses it with the surface.
So that's actual.
Yeah. The other ones that are like this, that have white or blue or brown in the background, that's like it's kind of like a Mallorca style technique where you put a glaze down first. On all those, I put a whole field of color in the background, and then drew the figure on top of that. And the idea is that you draw with it's like underglaze on top of the glaze. The glaze underneath it melts and then it fuses with the surface, and you get a nice surface. And it doesn't move or anything.
There's a nice juxtaposition of really controlled painting area surfaces and then really uncontrolled surface area.
What I'm going for.
Yeah. We had to level you did a few firings here, we had to level just to make sure it was drip off the side. Beautiful setup. So do you guys have any thoughts on the process, or are there any ceramic geeks out there that want to give a few tips? He's the guy.
Might you, why are they squares? Because, you're alluding to tiles and also painting and maybe possibly
Sure.
It's so easy to do any other shape in ceramic. Why squares? Just because you wanted to not notice the square?
That's a good question. I guess I didn't
You
know.
could have done round, I guess.
I've made some like round at the top. I also like the windows, especially the ones where it's cut off the face.
Yeah, it does. You're right. It does have kind of like a graphic novel feel to it, like this installation. Like I would often walk around and start from there and pick up some narrative in my mind. What's going on?
Would you ever consider, like buying some bisqueware platters and doing them, bigger?
Yeah.
Like buying the thing already made, like get somebody to slip cast it for you or something, and then or they could, I saw some at Medford's that actually had like a picture frame that was clay,
Right.
and if you had like platters that were had different ornate edges or whatever.
Sure.
I don't know. Have you done any of that except in the small scale? Have you done anything in the larger scale than the little ones?
Yeah, the biggest scale is maybe like, this big.
But it worked.
Yeah.
Craft.
But I have heard about some really big porcelain calves you can get that are like 24 by something would be nice. Or sometimes people use kiln shells
Yeah.
as their thing, and then they don't work or anything. It's like
Right.
the first 5 weeks that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
But pretty expensive.
Yeah, a little pricey.
Yeah, his stuff is really affordable. I'm always surprised, especially considering the process that goes into making ceramics. Oh, really? You want to sell it for that much? What a deal.
Well, you mentioned earlier you were thinking about doing some full figures too. I thought you said you were going to do. Is this something that you said a little bit back about in preparation for doing a figure or something?
Oh, I didn't know that.
You didn't refer to that? Maybe I heard it wrong.
Oh, just how when you make smaller heads,
Mm-hmm.
that sculptural process can help you with your other figurative work.
Sure.
Are the heads decals? I didn't listen.
No,
Some
it's
of the
not.
decals, they're all. And it's an underglaze over some sort of sign.
Yeah.
Right?
That makes a little bit clear glaze into the underglaze to make sure.
Fuses in.
And it
that's
doesn't
cool.
have a dry spot.
God, it must take forever.
I think there's a really interesting tradition. Obviously, there's a tradition of ceramics in the Bay Area, East Bay, especially in the Berkeley area, and through CCA, there's a lot of really creative things going on in the ceramic department. Creative work yourself, Crystal, Derek, and those guys.
Sure.
You want to comment on that? I mean, obviously, it's stuck with you. You know what I mean? I've noticed that. Like, it's so easy to graduate from school and drop it by the wayside. You haven't done that. You've stuck with it, and you keep evolving and you keep kind of feeding into it. What was it like in school? Was that instilled? Were you inspired? Or what's going on? There's something happening.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Also I got a job in ceramics
Yeah.
after I graduated, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, because you can keep working on your work. Even at work, I'm making a sample tile, right?
Well, then I would, I meet a lot of other ceramic artists all the time and help them. And, all my friends that still do ceramics come to me, or, so it helps with that. Definitely had me doing it, but access to kilns and much is nice too, of course.
I think this body of work is really unique to where we're at in the Bay Area, East Bay. I know personally, you're more tapped into the ceramic world. I think it's really unique to what's happening.
Specifically, there's a lot of figurative ceramics, especially the people that you mentioned there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Cool.
So the content, so into the comic stuff, some could look like thought bubbles, and some could be like the head's burning or something, because the way it's moved into there. Is there a particular thing you're going for?
I like it being ambiguous, where it could be either, you know, a thought bubble, or the head's actually not, or like an aura, or you know.
I noticed that the two square pieces are different.
By the
Yeah, are they earlier or later?
they're
They should be
slightly,
different for me, I don't know.
yeah, they're slightly earlier. Maybe some of the first. They weren't the first ones I made, but they were early on for sure. It did evolve a little bit more.
I think that
Oh, thank you. Oh, the way that looks.
yeah, the 42 seems very strong to me.
Mm.
Like almost scary, but very interesting and ambiguous.
Yeah, I really like ones where it did obliterate some of the faces, but so many of those it just there was no even vestige. Those ones are nice because they kept them a little bit. That was some of the early ones that I made, kind of test pieces were like that. I really liked those, and then, well, when I was working on the show, it was, you know, some of them.
I love how, like you could have it wouldn't have worked nearly as well, but you could have gone in and tried to paint these thought bubbles in, and it would be very good try. So I mean, I think the fact that you left it up to the forces of the universe was the wise choice, and it worked really well. Sometimes I guess you had to throw some away because they didn't work, but the ones that did work really tapped into the subconscious states of mind idea. It worked really well in that sense. Crystallizations. Yeah. And the fun thing is people relate to them in different ways. They're like, that's how I feel, you know? Yeah. So, like the guy right in the middle behind you with the big heavy blob on his head down low. Kind of feel like that sometimes.
I don't know if that describes.
Oh, I know, it's pretty fascinating. I didn't know about it so recently, but your source material, I don't know if you want to share it, where a lot of these portraits come from.
Well, most of these I just drew freehand, but some of the larger ones I would use a photograph for reference.
Cool.
And a lot of these are from a set of French encyclopedias that I got for free.
Yeah, a lot of them have that very vintage feel, the hairstyle. Again, there's some really cool process shots on the iPad over there, and you can see these pieces in process. One of there's a picture of your whole encyclopedia in one of them. So, kind of cool. It's like, let's see.
I think what's really cool is because of the nature of the dream or whatever, the thought thing at the top, and then the face is always at the right bottom of the thing. Where they're looking, like you're just drawn to that, and everyone is really different, and I think it's really incredible.
Thank you. I definitely tried to vary that.
Yeah, you're good.
I was curious about how much control do you have over what the color of the thought bubble is, and how did you choose the colors? Because like I noticed, I don't remember the number of the picture, but there's one that has a red frame around it, and that's like one of the only pictures that has like a very specific color. I think it's like a lot of pinks and greens and blues. And I'm just curious if, like, why was that the only one like that, or, you know?
Yeah, once I got into, that was an early one, so I was still experimenting with a lot of different kind of experimental glazes I had, so I kind of had a few more colors, whereas for some of the rest of the show I would, glaze, okay, this pile is all going to be this color palette, so I would do every step, kind of, lay down the background and all those, so it was kind of assembly line almost, first steps, the boring parts of the process.
But do you know what color it's going to come out?
Um,
I mean, I don't know anything about ceramics, so I mean,
Sure.
presumably like with gold, you know it's gonna be gold.
Yeah.
Like, are there some where you just don't know what the color's gonna be until you fire it?
Pretty much after a while, I pretty much knew what the colors would be.
And are your choices like the personality, like when you see the drawing, you're like, okay, I want this one to have this coppery, mad bubble, and I want this one to have this ethereal bubble, because this expression reminds you of that. Do you think like that, or?
Maybe it's kind of on a case by case basis. I try and be free and like not overly belabor that part of the process. There is some of those metallic ones that came out coppery, and the ones that came out particularly black. I used some really old lusters that I wasn't quite sure how those would turn out.
Is that copper?
Yeah.
It is copper. Yeah. So you have copper, gold. Do you have any other fancy lusters going on?
Yeah, but I think there's a little bit of white gold, and there's one called green gold. So that one on the far left there.
Yeah.
That's kind of a weird cast to it. And then there's some of the other ones over there where they'll have more than one different kind of gold. But I came up on a large amount of lusters, which is fortunate. Really expensive.
Ben, I'm just curious, this one here,
Uh-huh.
is that two holes in it for those bubbles that pop, or?
Yeah, it's like because the glaze is so thick in certain spots, it shivered a little bit, as it were.
Ben has this great collection of old lusters, like he was talking about. That he's collecting with. They look like they're 100 years old. Some really old labels. It's like a witch doctor's. Not a witch doctor. Traveling.
Yeah.
Selling elixirs. Brings his little toad with him.
Yeah.
You guys have any other thoughts or questions?
Just wondering, I'm very curious of the ways in which the heads are positioned so often the mouth is cut off. And I'm wondering if you could speak to the decision making, and especially when you're drawing on these little sources which are so more complete. It's why you made that choice.
Well, it was partially to make it so it wasn't just copying the original faces, so there's a little bit of composition going on, and then also to emphasize that it was, in the mind, the thoughts. So I thought,
Somehow the mouth pulls away, or
right. So it's just like more, that's.
Yeah, the focus is on the thought bubble in a sense. A lot of it, most of it.
Even some where I cut it right here, I feel like it has that effect. Well, and then also putting so much space above the head. Because I tried to do some where the face is cut off here, and then it doesn't really. It just seems like something weird is next to it. That's the.
Were there any pieces that particularly surprised you? I mean, aside from probably all of them, but like one that stood out that you like learned a lot from, or that gave you lots of inspiration?
No. I mean, there's just like ones that I really liked that turned out better than I was hoping for. That inspired me to like, if I had like 3 more years and could keep doing the exact same show, and then select all the ones that turned out that good to do what I could do.
Which ones are those?
What's the first one?
This front one?
Right there, and then like the one that's on the card, and then the one with the man and the woman there. Yeah, a couple other ones, but those ones in particular. Really like the ones that turned out.
Like the glaze was good.
Yeah, and there's enough. It's not all just like one thing going on. There's enough interest.
Is Tony here? Tony, are you here? No, Tony's a photographer. She does a lot of experimental processing. Here she has a studio, like tin types and things like that. and she bought one of the pieces on this wall. She was really drawn to it because a lot of it kind of resonated with her, some of the processes and the weird crystallizations and the unknown. You know, like going into a dark room is a lot like putting something in a kiln, you know exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
So she kind of related to the work in that way. Which is, you know, a lot of artists try and control everything, every minute aspect of something, and it tends to kill it. So, leaving things.
Like that and caustic.
Yeah, and costumes.
It is hard for me because, I overheat it. I like to overheat it. This,
Yes,
you have to kind of let go. I don't know.
It's true that ceramics is pretty prone in that too. It's so many steps. And once you disc fired it off, especially if it's sculpture or something, you're pretty like, okay, this is what it's gonna be. You have to just finish it. So, like having something, yeah, so we're changing it.
Well, if there's no more questions, thank you, Ben. It's been a great show. And we hope to we're still here for a while, so make yourself at home, have some tea and coffee, enjoy the work. Yeah. And studios will be open too if you want to wander a while. So thank you all for coming.
Go back to the gallery.
Like this.